Hi Year 6 designers, today we're going to be making a shadow puppet of a snake, but the idea is we're going to do all the different segments in different ways. We're going to decorate them in different ways with our lovely snake so that we can experiment and find out different ways of working. So we're going to need quite a few different materials this week, for this session rather. Don't worry if you don't have them all, I'll talk to you about what to do there. So you're going to need some felt tip pens. They're important. Bits of scraps of tissue and cellophane. So you might be able to use things like sweet wrappers at home. These are split pins, which you've probably seen before. They open up like that and they can hold things really securely. Don't worry if you haven't got those at home, that's fine. You also need a needle and thread. Okay, that's the way of joining our snake together. We need some scissors, a bit of glue, a pencil, a craft knife if you've got it. If you haven't, again, don't worry. And certainly don't use it without your parents around. If you're going to use a craft knife, you need to use a mat or a chopping board so you don't ruin your table. Then we need a weird thing. We need some of this baby oil, or normal oil. Cooking oil would do instead if you haven't got baby oil, something like olive oil or sunflower oil, anything like that's fine. And then you'll need a bowl to put your oil in. You'll need a bit of towel roll to be helping with that oil. You'll see what that's all about. And then you need one of these worksheets. If you're at school, you'll have one. If you're not at school, you need to draw out the sections on a piece of cereal packet, or if you've got white card, use white card. Let's just clear the decks there, move things out of the way to what we really need, and I'll show you what we're going to do. So this is what we need. If you haven't got it, then here we go. We've got your side of a cereal packet. We need 8 of these similar shapes here, like big eggs, and then they've got sort of knobbly bits on as well on the top and bottom. That's where we're going to do the joins. So we just sketch it all out, add the knobbly bits. I've not left enough room for the knobbly bits, I've just realised. What a silly Miss Martin. It doesn't matter at all, you can just sketch it back on. No one's going to see this at all. I'll just make that smaller so I can put there. And I'm also putting a dot in the end there as well, because that's where we're going to make a hole later. So you just keep drawing this out onto your cardboard. If you've got photocopy, that's fine. You can I'll be getting all your other materials ready while I'm showing other people this. But yeah, 8 of those circle shapes. Then you need a tail, which is very simple, just a smaller sort of like egg shape with only one of the knobbly bits on. So you can draw around a penny if you want to do that. If you want to be a bit more perfect, that's fine. And then I'm just drawing in the face of the snake now. So I want to include on there another bump at the back with a pinhole drawn on, and I'm just going to put in an eye and a fang. Fantastic. So that's what you're going to do if you're at home. Just draw it out on some card. If you've got white card, that's the best thing to use if you haven't used a cereal packet. Now, on here, you'll be able to look at this on your dojo if you're at home. I've written instructions: cut out, cut out, cut out with tissue, cut out with tissue, cut out with cellophane, cut out with cellophane. This is funny. Colour in with oil. So that's Felt Tips colour pen, and using some oil on it, which I'll explain. You don't do anything with that one, and you don't do anything with that one. You'll see what I mean. So what we're showing is different ways to add colour and decoration, that when you're performing your shadow puppet, it makes it more interesting. And you probably wouldn't use all these methods when you're doing yours for your best one, and making your shadow puppet for all the Greek myths. But it's good to know all your different options. So the first one, it just says cut out. And if you want to, you can draw designs on if they're more complicated, and then you cut them out. That's fine. Or you can just do it without. But please, if you're using a knife, you have to be so careful. Do you see how my hands are kept to the side? They're never underneath the knife. That's so important. If you have got a little craft knife at home, work with somebody there in the room with you, just supervising. Don't work on your own. So I've chosen quite a complicated shape to cut out. And the question then comes, well, what if I haven't got a craft knife? How do I cut out decoration in the centre if I haven't actually got a craft knife? Do not fear, my friends. I'll show you what to do. I'm just going to finish this little section here. So the way this will work is the light will beam through it, and where there is the cardboard, the light won't be able to get through, and where there's the holes, that's where the light will come, and so you'll be able to see the shapes of the holes there, and it'll be able to show the decoration. Okay, just coming to an end with that, get to that bit, and it kind of could do with another little bit on the end. I think I'll just take that out. There we go. So by just cutting it out, you are adding decoration. It doesn't have to be colour, it can be cut out. So here, let's have a look how we'd do it if we haven't got a nice fancy schmancy craft knife to use. So get a bit of Blu Tack or get a bit of plasticine, roll it up, stick it underneath, get a pencil, poke a hole in it. This is where you're going to then be able to poke your scissors through, but you can also poke a couple of holes to make sure there's room. And I'm just going to cut a random bit out. I'm not thinking too much of the design because I'm thinking about the different methods, the different ways of doing things. So I'm just going to chop a bit out there. And remember, you don't want to go over the black lines because that contains the shape. That's very important. So just take some out there. Now, I shall also show you another technique because you can use things to make holes like your pencils. You can make nice lines of holes to show where things are, decoration is. You could use things like a skewer, a nail, a pin, anything. So this counts as cutting out by making holes because the light's going to shine through. Okay, moving on. The next area is cut out with tissue paper. So I'm going to speed up, going to cut those things out. I'm going to put some tissue paper on the back. As you can see, I used some different colours as well as plain. Then I did the same thing with the cellophane. You can use sort of like stripes and things like that, or you could just use a plain colour, however you choose. And you notice there I'm still using the poke a hole method as well as using my craft knife, just to show you how it can be done. So look, I use different colours here, a red and a yellow and a blue in the cellophane, just as I did with the tissue paper, and then I just did one as a single colour. Now I'm just getting these out of the way because in a minute I'm going to use some oil and I don't want to ruin it, so I just cut out my head of the snake, and now I'm colouring in these two last bits using felt tip pen. Now take it longer than I did, make sure it's really nicely filled out, and this is the exciting bit. We put it on a bit of kitchen roll, we've got a bit of oil, and we rub it in, and we want to make sure that there's enough oil that when you turn it over you can see all the way through. You also need to rub off any excess. There we go, I've cut out my head and my tail. Now I'm cutting out all the little sections of the body, all differently decorated, because that's the idea, to have an experiment. And there's my oiled ones. I've dried them off, so it's not a problem. So we've got different ways of decorating. I'm now going to show you different ways of joining all those sections together. Can you see here I've started joining the bits together. Now I've used two methods, one with the split pin and one with a stitch on it. Now here is a shadow puppet that I got from Thailand, and traditionally shadow puppets are stitched. Can you see there's a little stitch there? Can't get it to focus. There you go, little stitch, and then look, the stitch stitched on the back there. So now we're going to look more at the joining. as I say, we can use needle and thread, and we can use the split pins. I'm going to show you how to do the split pin first. Get a pencil and poke it through on the little dot that's already on the card. I used some Blue Tack there as well. Poke your pin through, make a hole in the second one, poke your pin through, and then you can see that it's the two pieces. So you pull one down and one the other way, and then that's fixed together. So that's a nice simple method of doing it, but a stronger way can actually be sewing. So I want everyone who can to do both. If you've only got thread, or if you've only got split pins, then that's fine. You start off by tying a nice big fat knot into the thread, and that's not fat enough, so I'm going to put another loop or so in there. Now what you also need is a tail at the end of that knot. There you go, there's my knot, and then in my fingers there is the tail. That's the bit hanging out. Now that needs to be long enough that you're going to be able to tie a knot with it later. Okay, so we're going to start off doing our little stitch. We go in through, just make a hole. Again, you can do it on your Blue Tack. And then we've got a hole, and we just pick another bit of random and we put a hole in there. That just makes it easier. Put them together. And now we're going to go in from the back, because I want this knot on the back. Now, no one will actually see this if it is on the front by mistake, but I just think it's a bit neater if you do it on the back there. And there we've got our tail left over, do you see? And then we put it through the back of this one. There we go, already had our hole. And pull those together. That's great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch downwards this time. So again, I've got it on my Blue Tack because it helps. Just a little stitch, probably 1/2 centimetre wide. That's it. Rather 1/2 centimetre long. Pull through your thread gently. Make sure it's right the way through. It was caught up there on mine. So pull it through. And now, where you had that tail from before, you're using that to tie a knot. One in there and another one, a double knot, to make sure it's safe. And then you're going to just snip that off. And it's ready to do another one. So I'm going to speed up a bit. I've shown you the two methods, the push pins and, the split pins and the sewing. Let's go, I'll do another sewn one first of all. That's it. Little stitch, then I'm going to do the rest with split pins, I think, just so I can be quick. And there we go. We've got our snake. We've got it's all joined up. We've got all our different decorations shining through. I'll show you what this looks like on a screen later. We're then just going to attach some sticks to it. So if you haven't got these lovely kebab skewers, a lot of our parents love doing cooking, so we might have these skewers at home. If not, you could use drinking straws. You could use a couple of twigs, straight twigs you find in the park. You could use pencils, anything, that's fine. Okay, that's a bit of tape at one end. And a bit of tape at the tail. Now this is why I didn't want you to do anything with those sections, because the stick would show through and ruin it. So just sticking that one on. Also, you can't tape onto the ones you've oiled, so you have to do something different with those, because if you're going to try to tape, I mean, you can oil the front and end bits, but then you'd need to stitch on the stick as well. And there we have our lovely moving, swirling snake, all in different techniques. We've used colouring in and oil, we've used simple cutout, we've used cutout with tissue and cutout with the cellophane as well. He's rather nice, isn't he? Now, I made myself a little shadow puppet screen in the window. At school, we're going to have proper shadow puppet screens for you to use when you're doing your story.
That's it.
But
Keep
all I
it
did
moving like a
here
slithery
was
snake.
I got a piece of baking roll. This is the stuff baking parchment that you stop food sticking with if you're cooking a cake, and I literally just put it on the window with a bit of blue tack and I shone a light through. So I've made a shadow puppet show for all my neighbours to see. I thought that was quite funny, and you can see how the snake moves and you can see how the light goes through and you can see all those different colours there. So this is something you can have a go at home. If you haven't got a shadow puppet screen, which I doubt you would, you can make one like this. Piece of thin paper. So as I say, this was baking parchment, and just blue tacked onto your window. Don't want to make a mess. And then you can have a play. So I used a light behind it. I turned the lights off in the living room and then shone a spotlight through it, because you need to have a bit of darkness. I also did this, it was about 5 o'clock at night, so it was beginning to get dark, which helped as well. Because when we're doing this in our classrooms next half term, when we're telling our Greek myths, we'll have the screen and we'll have it really nice and dark. Have fun making your snake, everyone. Really experiment with those different techniques. Bye.